to arrive to this moment. Your body is here, but where is your attention? Where is your focus? Where is the awareness? Allow it all to arrive right here into this moment. Just arrive. And allow yourself to draw the awareness from the constantly changing world around you to the eternal world within you, to that which is unchanging within you. Draw the awareness there. There's always noise of sounds, noise of sights, noise of sensations, noise of smells, noise of our thoughts jumping around, fears and desires. Allow yourself to anchor in that place within you that is changeless. Find and feel that place within. It doesn't change. It just is. Allow the awareness to anchor there. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level. And gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly and gently lower your hands and open your eyes. Welcome to Satsang. I'm so sorry for the late start tonight. I hope that you all were with us in the Ganga Arati, so that at least you had the beautiful opportunity to have extra time singing Kirtan. We're late because Pujya Swamiji and I just returned back from a very divinely action-packed, movement-packed, rush-filled, movement-packed couple of days, and our flight landed in Dehradun about an hour and a half later than we had anticipated. And so we were late getting into the Aarti, and hence everything was late. So apologies for the late start, but I do hope that you were able to drink from the nectar of Bhakti, of devotion and love in the chanting on the banks of Ganga during that time. We'll start, as always, with a question that's come in from our audience joining us from all over the world, online. And then we'll open it up to any questions that any of you have. We have 2 microphones here, one on either side. So based on wherever you're sitting, just come up to the mic and ask whatever question is in your heart. My problem is that I overthink too much. Please give me some solutions. This is asked by ER on our Instagram. Overthinking is a habit, much like any other habit. It's not something that we're born with. Babies don't overthink. But it's something that as we grow, develops. And there's lots of reasons that it happens. And it's important to clarify in the beginning when I say overthinking, we're not talking about you have a problem. You are consciously, deliberately applying the skills of your mind to solve the problem. And it takes a lot of time. That's just called life. There are moments where we have problems that actually take quite a bit of time and energy to think about and solve. That's deliberate, conscious use of your brain. Overthinking is the habitual, what we call rumination, which is you're just over and over and over again, the same stuff over and over. The word rumination, interestingly, actually, I think somebody was telling me this, that the etymology of it, the history of it, actually has to do, we use it for what's in our mind, but it actually has to do with, it's either horses or cows, I can't remember, but one of them, I think it's horses, the way that they chew, where they chew and 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 they just keep, right? And you almost want to say swallow already. That's actually where the word rumination comes from. It's the chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing on something that's already been chewed. It's already become liquid in your mouth, like swallow it and be done. Overthinking is that rumination in the mind. You're not solving anything. You're not getting anywhere. You're not having new insights and inspirations and creative bursts. You're just chewing with the mind on the same stuff. It typically tends to be negative. I have yet to hear someone say, the problem is that I think about how grateful I am to God too much of the time. Problem is that I'm just full of all of the gratitude that I have, all of the love that I have. I have yet to hear that problem. So overthinking is almost by definition, it's negative. At the very best, it's just useless, it's neutral. But it's a complete waste of time. And it's simply a habit that our minds develop, and it develops for a variety of reasons. One is we're taught. You don't actually have to have somebody speaking their thoughts out loud to know that they are an overthinker. And if our family of origin that we're raised in, if they're overthinkers, tends to be what we pick up. There's some way that we actually learn that, even though nobody teaches it specifically. We pick it up as a habit. But then, throughout our culture, throughout our society, there's so many different things that actually contribute to it. For example, the way that most of us multitask, the way that most of us will have, for example, something we're doing, could be something we're doing on the computer, it could be a conversation we're having, it could be a book we're reading, it could be a dinner we're cooking. So we've got one task we are theoretically doing. But then we've also got, say, the TV on, music on, news on, something's playing. Maybe we're listening to a podcast. Something's on. Then we've got our devices. They're beeping, they're blinking, they're buzzing. Notifications. We're turning and looking at them. We've got to, and that's the most innocuous, the simplest, easiest, lightest way that it is. For most of us, it's a lot worse. It's too many things simultaneously. And what ends up happening is the brain actually adapts. And it adapts to the way you use it. And when you give it too much stimulus at once, too much input at once, coming from too many different directions, it tries to keep up. And so the mind becomes the equivalent of jogging in place. Or doing calisthenics, right? You're doing jumping jacks, then you're jogging, then you're doing... And the mind starts to actually try to behave like that in order to keep up with all of what you're giving it to do. And so interestingly, one way to work with overthinking is work with multitasking. It doesn't actually make you more efficient. We think it does, it doesn't. It makes you much less efficient. The time it takes to complete anything when you're multitasking is much, much longer. Go back to doing one thing at a time. And what you'll find is that the mind actually follows suit. If the body does it, the mind ends up following it because then it only has to focus on one thing at a time, not 10. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of the overthinking is that we, through media, through the TV that we watch, the movies that we watch, the commercials that we see, the social media stuff that we see, we're being molded to be discontent. They're literally brewing and breeding discontent. It's a very good marketing strategy. The less content I am, the more I want to numb that discontent by scrolling whatever social media thing that person may be making money off of. But also the more discontent I am, the more ripe I am to click here and buy now whatever you're trying to sell me. Whether it's a material possession, whether it's a trip, whether it's a course, whether it's a CD, but whatever it may be. The less content I'm feeling, the more primed I am to just click and buy. So it's a very good marketing strategy. People who are marketing to us don't actually have your highest benefit as their interest. They're not worried that now you're going to start overthinking. They're worried about how many eyeballs on their product, how many conversions, who's going to buy it, who's going to sign up, who's going to keep watching the show for the next batch of commercials. Because when we're discontent, things like TV, movies, social media, they become fantastic ways of just numbing ourselves and distracting ourselves, aside from all of the rest of it. So as we become discontent, the mind learns to pick up discontent all over the place, right? This person talked to me like this. They looked at me like that. I didn't get this thing that I wanted. This didn't happen that I wanted. This happened that I didn't want. And we become like Velcro for more and more reasons to be discontent. We become like discontentment magnets. And then the mind has more to think about. And so we're still even more overthinking. So when you notice that, just allow yourself to bring some gyan, some wisdom, some insight into this. What am I really discontent about? In whose hands have I become kind of a pawn? And again, it may be marketing, it may be society, it may be culture, it may be your past sanskaras, it may be anything. But something is brewing and breeding this fertile ground in you for the overthinking of all of the things that are wrong, that could go wrong, that have gone wrong. Challenge that. Just challenge it. One of my favorite teachings and truths is not everything you think is true. And it seems really simplistic, and yet the first time I heard it, it was a huge revelation, because if it exists in my mind, I tend to think it's true. And when you realize that just because you've had it as a thought doesn't actually mean it's true, and you start to really challenge your thoughts, don't be mean to yourself, but just ask yourself, like, why do I think that? What made me think that? Where did I get that idea? Is it from something in my past, something in my sanskaras, something I've picked up? Why do I think that? What evidence do I have? What other way might there be of looking at it? One of my favorite tools and techniques, not just for overthinking, but for general happiness, is to ask yourself a very simple question. Anytime you're upset, anytime your mind is going a million miles an hour, just a simple question. Is there an alternative? It's just a question. You haven't told your mind you're stupid and wrong. You've just posed a question. Is there an alternative? And what you'll find is there's always an alternative. An alternative way of thinking than the way you are thinking. And if you don't know what the alternative is, make it up. My favorite example about this, because it's so simple and clear, is imagine you're driving down the freeway and somebody cuts in front of you. Suddenly the mind is going a million miles an hour. It's angry, it's upset. How dare this guy? Who the hell does he think he is? He almost killed me. Oh my God, I almost died. We've got all of these thoughts. Should have bought the other car that had the better safety thing. You know, the freeway people shouldn't make the on-ramp like this. Now that's one way of thinking in that moment. Not only does it breed overthinking, but it breeds discontent. Just tell yourself a story. Imagine that 2 minutes ago, this guy got a phone call from the hospital that said, your son has been in a horrible accident. If you don't get to the hospital to see him within the next 5 minutes, you're not going to see him alive. Now imagine, how do you feel about that guy who cut you off? How do you feel about that moment? Changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly you want to clear the freeway for him. Suddenly the mind has become, right? It's dropped so deep. It's gone from shallow to deep. It's gone from contracted to expansive. It's gone from me versus you to us. There's always an alternative. And what matters most is not if it's true. I don't know the guy. I have no idea why he cut me off in traffic. But that doesn't matter. What matters is my mental state. Tell yourself a story. Whoever it is, whatever it is. Write a story in your mind. It'll change that narrative. And then lastly, there's a whole bunch of techniques, but I want to get to other questions. Lastly, of course, is the age-old, perennial, perfect answer, which is your spiritual practice. Meditation. Japa. These work directly with the mind. Pranayama. They're direct tools. Aside from the power of the possibility of enlightenment and awakening and God realization, you actually get a quiet mind. The mind actually becomes still. So meditate. Do japa, chanting. Do pranayama. Do practices that quiet the mind. Because even though you may only be doing it for 15 minutes or half an hour or 2 hours a day, it will ripple into the rest of your day, because the brain, it behaves very much like a muscle. It's not a muscle, biologically, it's not made from muscle tissue. But it behaves like a muscle. It does exactly what you train it to do. And so if you train it, it changes. Just give it a different habit. Beautiful. Thank you for that question. Other questions that anyone here might have? Yeah, you can just come to this microphone.
A number of years ago, in a relatively quiet moment, a thought came, and I sort of dismissed it at the time, but it's coming back. And the thought was, it's time to develop a devotional practice. And I'm a very non-devotional person. My love of my love of India started when I was extremely young, but it's really been about knowledge and Advaita and wanting to understand intellectually. It hasn't been heartfelt in the sense of finding a master and wanting to bend and touch the feet. It's like there's been none of that. And the only devotion in my life has been with a partner or my children. But the thought is coming, saying there's something more. Children are grown. That's all past. Yeah. And there's some desire, but it's not well formed. There's no object of there's no object to go towards. And I continue meditating, and I wonder if that will come up. But it hasn't. But that thought is there that says,
beautiful.
Whatever
Yeah.
Whatever that is. I don't have any more substance to it than that.
That's okay. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So the path of devotion, bhakti, is a very, very, very powerful spiritual practice. It's love. But it's love not just directed at a specific human being, but it's love that is more expansive. It's love that tends not to vary. I mean, even when you love someone, like your children or your spouse, nonetheless, they do things that presumably make you angry or disappointed. Presumably, there are moments in which that flow of love is more of a challenge to tap into. It's always there, of course, but presumably there are moments that it's more difficult to tap into. And the devotion for the divine is this opportunity to tap into a love beyond the physical. In fact, in the Arti, in the Kirtan that today Pujya Swamiji didn't lead because we weren't there, but they sang it anyway. And when he's here, he leads it. There's a line that says, Sabse unchi prem sagai. And what that means is that the highest form of love is that love for the divine. Now, in terms of developing a devotional practice, some thoughts. It may not come automatically, immediately, easily, for a specific form of the divine. It may not happen that just automatically somehow love for the divine in a specific form, whether a living being, a master, a guru, whether a divine avatar, divine manifestation, Krishna, Ram, Shiva, Hanumanji, whatever. It may come. It's certainly a prayer worth having. But here's what I would do. I would put yourself in situations of observing the exquisiteness of creation. Make a commitment that you're going to watch the sunrise every day, or the sunset every day, or both, in a meditative state, that just you and the sunrise, not a newspaper on the porch, but just you and the sunrise, you and the sunset. Find a place that doesn't have so much light where you can see the stars in the sky. As you move through the world, especially through nature, try to slow down and really observe, really notice flowers, birds. And as you observe, see whether there isn't a bit of, it may begin as awe, but from awe, devotion can blossom. Does something in your heart blossom as you see the sunrise or the sunset for that creator of it? Maybe with a name, maybe without a name, maybe with a form, maybe without a form. Does something blossom in you for that creator or for the creation in that exquisite moment? Allow yourself to be in beautiful nature, quiet, open to the presence of that creator. and the presence of the Creator in the creation. Hug a tree. Lie on your back, floating in a lake, in the ocean. And see whether through those experiences you can't have that connection with the presence of the divine. So that's one suggestion. The other suggestion is put yourself in situations where there is group chanting of devotional songs, because there is a power of being in a group of people who are in love that is contagious. It's like if you've ever noticed, if you're with people and they suddenly, everybody's laughing and maybe you didn't hear the joke or get the joke, or it's in a language that you didn't understand. Nonetheless, laughter is contagious. We used to have a Swamiji here who has since passed away, named Swami Yoganandaji, who used to teach laughing yoga every day. Every morning he would teach laughter yoga, and he was, 90, then 95, then 100, then 102, and he must have weighed like 60 pounds. And he just had this ability in a body that was essentially almost non-existent to pull this bellowing laughter out of him. And he just made everybody laugh. I mean, you couldn't help laughing. In the same way, when people are singing in love for God, there is an energy that is contagious. And if you allow it to bypass the brain, and that in and of itself is a practice, of course, but your meditation should help with that. Allow that love in the chanting. Just allow yourself to sing. Don't expect anything to happen. Don't keep watching it to see if something is happening. Don't judge the happening or not happening. Try to remove the intellectual fascination with what might be happening or not happening. And just allow yourself to sing amidst people who are singing in love for God. And see what happens. There have been so many people from all over the world I've heard tell me, just in the arti, just in 15 minutes of kirtan, from other religions, other traditions, other languages, but there is something about that power of group devotion. So wherever you live, find kirtan. It's much better in person than just listening to it online. See if you can find a group of people chanting kirtan. And see whether that doesn't evoke something within you. And I guess the last suggestion that I would make is read. When you read scripture or you read teachings, which of course is an aspect of the Gyan Yoga tradition, in addition to reading the Vedantists, those who identify or we would label as Gyan Yogis, there's a lot of Gyan to be had from the Bhakti yogis. Pick up a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, on the Ramayana, on the Mahabharata, on whatever interests you. But from an author of the Bhakti tradition. Pick up a copy of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. In addition to, Swami Chinmayananji's Bhagavad Gita. So, he's a brilliant Gyan Yogi. But pick up also Prabhupada's. Pick up one from someone who themselves is steeped in love for God. And just see how the same teachings are given when they're given from the perspective of one who is committed to a path of love. Something will work, I promise. I have faith in your heart. It brought you here. Wonderful. Yeah, last question.
Namaste.
Namaste.
It was a really good question because it introduced mine.
Oh, good.
In case I have two questions, very related. When I left home, I started a notebook about a special feeling, and you speak about this feeling. You said that devotion is love. So I asked people from all around the world what is love, what their interpretation of love. And the second one is, as far as I know, you can be full of love, but it's very difficult to spread over people, to spread over you. So how did you manage when you first find love, I think here in Parmarth, and how did you manage to spread it over all the day and all the day?
Beautiful. So here's the nice thing about love. You don't actually have to work to spread it. It spreads automatically. Have you ever seen a dog get out of a swimming pool or a lake or the ocean or after running in the sprinklers? Have you ever seen that? What does the dog do? Right? And if you're anywhere in the vicinity, you're soaking wet in 10 seconds. When you experience love, you can't help but share it. You are literally dripping wet wherever you go. It is why the masters, the awakened beings, are magnets. These days, in the last 10 years maximum, there's been social media and whatnot in the last maybe 25 years maximum. We've had websites and whatnot. But people have been finding their way to masters. Long before there was, an email address that you could go to and find out what their schedule was, or a website that you would know where to find them, or a social media page where you could follow them. People have been finding their way into the presence of masters. As long as there have been people, for thousands and thousands of years. We have recorded history of at least thousands of years. Because they are magnets. Why? Because everyone wants love. And when you are a being of love and a being of light and a being of truth, you become a magnet. And people are drawn, and you share it. That's why they're drawn, because you're sharing it. You might have all the love and the light and the wisdom, but if you weren't sharing it, they wouldn't be drawn. But they're drawn even to masters who barely ever spoke. There was a great master named Raman Maharishi who barely spoke, just sat. Just in oneness. In oneness. But it emanated from him. He exuded it. He didn't have to say, oh, I love you, and 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 you're God, and you're God, and you're God. He didn't have to say it. He just lived it. And it gets shared. So your job is just to live that love. Live it fully, live it purely. Keep that flame of love very strong inside. Keep it burning, keep it strong. And you'll see wherever you go, you're spreading love. You can't help but spread love. Because it becomes your nature. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. We have, starting at 8 o'clock, which probably is not in too much time from now, it's from 8 to 9, a special kirtan, a bhajan and kirtan program in, I assume, the satsang room. Not the satsang room, the satsang hall, you know? It's in the satsang hall, what we call the satsang bhavan, which is right in the center of the ashram. So if you walk as though you were walking back to the banks of Ganga, it'll be on your left. It's the big hall there next to the temple. That'll go from 8 to 9. Feel free, we would love to have all of you join us there. And we do have a beautiful full day of yoga, meditation, morning fire ceremony, the Ganga Arati, of course. There's a schedule for all of that in the reception when you walk out. Everything here is offered freely to everyone. There's no charge for anything. Come, join, fill yourself so that you can then share with others. And I look so forward to being together with you all again tomorrow evening.